That Triathlon Show 268. Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of That Triathlon Show, the podcast presented by scientifictriathlon.com. I'm your host Michael, and on today's episode I interview coach Wolfram Bott. Wolfram is the head coach of the German Triathlon Federation Development Center in Freiburg. This is where he has a squad for some of the most promising young talents in the country. But Wolfram also has a decorated background as a coach of some long-distance stars of Germany, such as Nils Frommhold, Christian Brader, and Andreas and Michael Raelert. But before we get into the interview with Wolfram, big thanks to our sponsors, Roka, that you can find on roka.com. Roka are the world-leading manufacturers of wetsuits, dry suits, swimskins, goggles, and high-performance eyewear, and prescription glasses and sunglasses. My personal favorite product of all categories of 2020 was without a doubt the Roka Maverick X2 wetsuit. It's such a fantastic wetsuit. It feels like a dream to swim in it. You are not restricted at all in your mobility thanks to the arms up technology and the material selection that Roka has in the wetsuit. You do feel like you get a lot of additional speed when swimming in it. You just have to try it out to see what I mean, but it feels like a bit of a spaceship when you start swimming in it and suddenly you have rocket fuel in you. And there are many reasons for that, including the fantastic buoyancy profile, but also things like the exoskeleton that helps you generate more propulsion through including your core more in your swimming, and so on. So that is absolutely one of my favorite products. But I also really loved the Matador sunglasses for training and for casual day-to-day wear. They obviously look really cool. That's a must in any self-respecting pair of sunglasses. But that's not all that matters, of course. In terms of performance and training, they are super comfortable, lightweight. They have the famous Geeko anti-slip technology, so they won't fall off your face ever. Great optical quality and optical characteristics, so it's another fantastic product from Roka. You can get 20% off your Roka order with the promo code that you can get on roka.com/TTS. And I am very excited to welcome a new sponsor on board on That Triathlon Show, and that is Zen 8 Swim Trainer. This is an indoor swim trainer with which you can build swim-specific power, endurance, and technique. One of the best features of this trainer is that it really forces you to activate your core whilst training on it, thanks to a patent-pending swim bench design, which has an element of instability, and that will force you to engage those core muscles to stay on it while training. In addition, it is designed to promote a high elbow catch, so the height of the swim bench is perfectly planned so that a straight arm stroke would cause you to hit the floor while taking the stroke. So you are forced to use a high elbow catch. And another thing that is really great about it is its price point. The normal price is 159 British pounds, but we have an additional 20% off discount code for That Triathlon Show listeners, so that you can get it for only 127 British pounds. You can do this by using the discount code TTS20 on zen8swimtrainer.com, and the 8 there in Zen8 Swim Trainer is the number 8. Now, without any further ado, let's get into the interview with Wolfram Bott. Welcome to That Triathlon Show, Wolfram. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. It's a strange time at the moment with all the corona restrictions here in Germany. We have to deal with, and it's quite strange at the moment.
Yeah, I heard it. I have an athlete in Germany, and the pools, at least in Frankfurt, closed again recently as we record this here in the middle of November.
Yes.
So I don't know if that also affects you and your squad, or if you have special permission. Are you able to swim, or is it all closed for you too?
We are able to swim, but not in our home pool. We have a pool nearby Freiburg. It's a private pool. Because the community, they closed all their pools. And we have a permission that we are allowed to swim, but the community, they close the pools and they don't open it for a small bunch of triathletes.
Yeah. So before we go any further, can you introduce yourself, tell us who you are and a bit more about your background and your current role in coaching?
Yes, I'm 47 years old right now, living in the near of Freiburg, in the Black Forest, and started triathlon at the age of 13 in 1987. That was also a quite exciting time because nobody knows anything about triathlon training at that time. And we just do it for trial and error. Yes, in 1995 I start to study sports science in Saarbrücken. Yes, and the goal was always to be a coach at that moment, because I recognized really fast that I'm not able to have a professional career as a triathlete. As I started coaching around 2000 with small kids at a small club in Heidelberg as a swim coach. So in this group was right now as a triathlete who is at the German Federation. His name is Jonas Breinlinger. He was there. He was 8 years old. We started work together. Yes, and in 2005, I got the opportunity to work for the German Federation in Saarbrücken. Yes, and I did that till 2012. Yeah, and after the Olympics, I changed my way and go to Luxembourg, and I was their national coach for 3 years. And after that, I stepped back a little bit because we started a family life, and so I go to Freiburg to work for as a development coach for a small department here in Germany, based at the Performance Center in Freiburg. Yes, and so I do that for 5 years right now. Yes, and try to develop some athletes. We started 2015 with 2 athletes here in Freiburg, and now we have a group of 13 athletes, aged around 17 till 2022. Yes, that is my main work right now. And during that time, I also coach some professional long distance athletes, like Nils Frommhold or Andreas Raelert, and do the preparation with them for the big Ironman events. And that's it.
Yeah, I think that, those are names that the listeners will be very familiar with, Nils Frommhold and Andreas Raelert. And then the work you're doing now with the developmental athletes is also very interesting. I think I also always find it very interesting to hear the work that goes into that type of work, because it is quite it is a very different setting from what we're used to dealing with in the day-to-day coaching age groupers, which is what I do for the most part, and well, at least not young junior athletes. But before we go into any of that, could you give an overview of your main sort of principles when it comes to coaching or your approach around coaching and training?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I try to be very close to the athletes because I think nobody knows their bodies better than the athletes themselves. And we try to talk a lot about the process. And yes, so we try to develop a good body feeling by the athletes. Because I think every good athlete has also a good body feeling.
What does a body feeling mean to you? Does that mean having a good sense of what their body needs, or can you describe that a bit more?
Yes, I think they have a good sense what their body needs in training, and in for example, also regeneration, and they have to develop a good body feeling. What is the intensity load, or the intensity in training? What can I do if I have to do hard intervals? What I'm able to run there to get the most out of it.
Yep, understood. And what else can you tell us about your coaching methodology?
Yes, my approach is nearby the Norwegian way right now, because I think it's an endurance sport and an aerobic sport, and you have to do quite a lot volume if you want to be a world-class athlete. For me, it's the same thing they do right now as we do in my days at the German Federation during the years 2006 till 2012. Quite a big volume with low intensity, and also some good interval sessions. So I think if you want to be world class, you have to train quite a lot volume, and staying around 25 till 30 hours a week. There are small changes or small differences in the coaching philosophy. Yes, I think Jonathan Hall, he do a little bit less, but he also trains 20 till 22 hours a week, which for me is also a quite big volume.
Yeah, it still adds up to 1,000 hours per year or so.
Yes.
So it's not a small amount.
No.
So when you say that you follow the Norwegian approach, or it's similar to the Norwegian approach, does that also mean that when you do intervals, you quite often focus on staying at around the second lactate threshold, which they tend to do, and that you don't do maybe as much of the real high intensity intervals, or is it more about the volume and the intensity control at lower intensities where you have the similarities?
Yes, it's also about we try to stay at the second lactate threshold in our intervals, and we do high intensity intervals just around the time when we get close to the races, or if we want to develop the VO2 max. So we do high intensity valves 1 time per week, in wintertime or something like that.
And would you do that 1 time per week? Would that be 1 bike session and 1 run session and maybe even 1 swim session where you do that, or just 1 time in a specific discipline?
I think we do it 1 time in a bike session and 1 time in a run session if we want to increase the VO2 max.
All right. So can you talk a little bit more? You already mentioned some things about your periodization, but if you can go into some more detail about how you would typically periodize the season.
Okay, I have no typical periodization at all. In my early days as a coach, I try to do that because we are my teacher was a Eastern German guy, and they work with that periodization model, but it was not my way to coach the athletes. So I try to break up the year in small pieces where we have some main focus, like increase the VO2 max. So we do that for about 6 till 8 weeks and have the main focus there, but with a lot of variation. And throughout the year, it is nearly all the same. We started because I think we have to train the athletes the whole year with also the same intervals or something like that.
All right. Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. And can you go into what a weekly structure might look like? Like, do you have a way in which you plan where, like, how many easy days you will have and how many moderate or hard days? Do you have some sort of model there that you follow?
Yes, we have a model because we always do, or we have a plan that is nearly the same every week. Where the sessions are, and we have 2 easy days. It's on Monday and Friday, where we have an easy swim session, and in the afternoon we do a core session. Some older athletes do maybe a short and easy run for around about 30 minutes till 40 minutes at that days, or a short bike session. Yes. And on Tuesday, normally it's a hard run session with intervals. It depends on the year, on the time of the year. Right now, we do a lot of hill work there. And if we get closer to the races, we do some intervals near race pace. On Wednesday, we have normally a hard bike session. In that time of the year, it's mostly a VO2 max session. Yes, on Saturday, it's also a hard day for us, where we do normally a hard swim and then also a hard bike and or a hard run session. The other hard swim session is also on Tuesday. And on Thursday, we have a long run. And on Sunday, it's normally a long bike session. That are the main sessions of the week. So, and the other sessions are some easy sessions with low intensity.
Yeah, that's a good description. And do you, at some point when you get closer to the races, do you use a lot of specific runs off the bike, brick workouts, or is that something that you don't do a lot of? You let the races take care of that part of the training?
No, we do. Then we start doing a lot of brick sessions, or not a lot of, but near maybe 1 time or 2 times a week. Some hard bike, following by some hard run sessions near race pace. Main focus at the first step is on shorter intervals, and then we try to increase the length of the intervals.
And if we go into each of the disciplines specifically, so can you just give a couple of thoughts and suggestions around what you believe is important in swim training to start with, and then we go into cycling and running after that. But first, swimming, a couple of thoughts about what you think is important when it comes to swim training for triathletes.
Yes. The first of all, at the swimming, it's the technique. We started also, or our year started mostly in October, and there we do a lot of technique work with our athletes. That you have a good swim stroke, and the economy is very important. So we do a lot of drills at the beginning of the session, and try to increase that first with short distance, and then also a longer distance with technical drills. That is very, very important, but it's also important for the bike sessions and the run sessions, because I think a lot of athletes just train and forget that the technique is really important, because you don't need that much energy if you have a good technique. So that is our first step, and then we work on speed and on strength. Also, in the swim sessions, we do a lot of short, really fast sprints for them. And we also do right now we swim a lot of medley sessions, or butterfly sessions, to increase the strength of the athlete. I'm not a big fan of swimming with pedals and pool boy, because that changes your technique. And for a lot of athletes, if they swim a lot with pedals and pool boy, the technique is getting worse. So we try with our really young athlete to swim a lot of butterfly for develop the strength. Yes, and not so often with pedals and pool boy. And after that phase, we increase the volume and do a lot of aerobic work and some intervals.
All right, that's a great overview. And can you do a similar one for cycling?
Yes, cycling, it's nearly the same for all three disciplines. First of all, we start also with technique. We try with the younger athletes. We do a lot of roller training in wintertime, so that we try to develop the bike handling and the pedal technique. We do a lot of cadence changes, try to build up the cadence till 120, 130 RPM, so that they can ride smooth with that pedal cadence, and do a lot of single leg pedaling, also on the rollers or outside, so that they develop a good pedal technique. And after that, we have a long phase where we do quite a bit of strength endurance, also big gear work with low cadence, like 5 times 6 till 8 minutes uphill, with a cadence of 50 to 60 RPM, right under threshold work. Then also in the springtime, we increase also the volume for the athletes. And I think the bike is also very important for develop the run.
Yeah,
but I think there are some crossover possibilities.
Yeah, I agree, and it's a lot safer to do a lot of volume on the bike than on the run, so that's a big advantage.
Yeah.
And finally, the run, if you can go into that.
Yes, as I said before, right now we do a lot of hill work and also sprints on the run to increase the speed and the strength. This is 1 time or 2 times a week right now. So that is the first, or that is the second step. In October, we try also to do a lot of technique work, also with drills. We do a lot of strength training for the hips, and some plyometric training for the athletes to get a better running economy and to get out also better technique. Also, we started always with some drills over short distance after the warm up, so that especially for the younger athlete, that they develop a good running technique, because I think that's really important. If for short course and for long course athletes later, because if you want to run really fast, and you have to run really fast if you want to be world class, like I think at the Olympics in Tokyo, you will have to run 29:15 if you want to win it in the men's category. And so you have to run, I think, a 10K running race round about 28:20, 28:30. So you have to have a good running technique. You can't run that fast times with a bad technique. And right now, as I say, we do a lot of hill work for the strength, and later we started some interval sessions on the track. Normally we started with 200s and increased that to 5 times till 10 times 1,000 meters and sometimes also longer intervals.
And would you generally do the interval set sort of close to race pace or at race pace?
Yes, close to race pace and at race pace. No, the shorter distance, like 200s or 400s, we do it a little bit faster than a race pace, but most of the interval sessions are on race pace.
All right.
I think that's enough for us.
Yeah. And one thing there you mentioned with the running economy in particular that is needed for both short course and long course racing. And I want to ask this question here. What are, you think, the similarities and differences between training for short course versus long course triathlon?
Oh, I think it is also, the short course is also an aerobic event, but it's more dynamic than a long course competition. But in training, I think 90% of the training they can do together, because it's the same approach. And so some specific sessions they have to do alone. It is in long course, it is the main topic is the bike training, because you have to get a really good, or you have to get in a really good bike shape for a long course triathlon. Yes, because that is, if you get off the bike, you have to be fresh, and for the marathon, and so you have quite a big volume there on the bike, and as for the short course athletes, there's a more dynamic way in the races on the bike. You have sprints and always slow down, accelerate, and that you have to train also on the bike sessions. We try to do in springtime or in summertime, one time per week, like a criterium in the training session, so that they can develop their bike skills also there, because you have to have a good technique also on the bike to ride the corners and to accelerate and so on. But I think 90% they can train together. And I think it is quite important for long course athletes to train with short course athletes, because they often lost their speed, and that is a thing I learned in the way I work with Nils Frommhold, and he was really good at the beginning, and I think we lost a lot of speed in the training, because we don't do that anymore. We don't run really fast on the track, because it was every time, so not a really hard session. It was hard, but not really hard. So we lost a lot of speed, and it was also my fault, because we do at the beginning with Nils, we do often 3 Ironmans in a year, and so you have always that in mind, that you have to prepare for that big Ironman event, and we forget to develop or to train the speed sessions, and that was a fall. And so I think it is quite important that also the long course athletes don't lose their speed.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point that you make there. And what about strength training? How important do you consider that is, and what kind of strength training would you prescribe?
Yes, I think it's very important. We started always with some core training and some plyometric training with the younger athletes. And at the ages 18, 19 years, we implement some strength training with weights. And I think it's really, really important because some of it's important for them to stay injury free, and you can do that, or it's quite a big factor that the strength training is there to stay injury free. So we do mostly 4 sessions a week on strength training, 2 core sessions and 2 strength sessions with weights. And normally we start also the weight training with strength endurance. Also, the weight is not that high, and we do a lot of repetitions. But we changed that really fast to some training with high weights and only 2 till 4 repetitions. So we call it Max Kraft training. I don't know the English word right now.
Max force.
Max force, yes.
Or max strength.
Yeah, max strength.
Right, yeah. That aligns well with what we're hearing from research, for example, about strength training for endurance athletes.
Yes.
And
what the strength endurance training, we try to teach the technique of the movement for them.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's exactly the same way that I do. I just call the strength endurance adaptation, but it's the same thing, really.
Yeah.
Low to moderate weights and high reps. What about testing? Do you do like specific swim, bike, and run testing for athletes, perhaps to like set target intensities? And if you do, how do you do that?
So in our department, it is so that we have 2 days in a year, normally in November, one day where we do testing for the bike and the run. And also in March, in front of the big training camps where we do testing with the younger athletes, also run and the bike. Yes, and I do some testing with Insight. I think that is right now the best system to get an overview of the physiology from the athlete. So we do that in training sessions. That is also a big plus for Insight, that you can do that during training sessions. So we tried this for right now 1.5 years, and it is really good. So that we have the overview of the physiology from the athlete.
And do you tend to use the lactate testing version, or do you also use the power only version that exists on the bike?
No, we use the lactate testing there.
Yeah.
I never worked with only the power. It is really new right now, and I never do that. We always do the lactate testing version.
Yeah. For listeners that are not aware, the Inside is a software that helps do testing or analyze tests, and create a physiological profile. And I will link to episodes I've done in the past with Sebastian Weber in the show notes, so that those interested can go and have a look at that. But then, so an interesting aspect when you're coaching a squad of athletes, your group of developmental athletes, is that group training is still probably, I assume, an integral part of that, and they will be training together in a group. How do you manage that, getting the intensity right for the individual, but still making the group training work?
Yes, it is always good when the group is homogeneous, and they are all on nearly the same level. And that is sometimes quite difficult, because you always have a range of athletes. Yes, and but we try to give them some individualization. They do nearly the same program, but with different, not different intensities, but we also give them power on the bike where they have to stay in, or running times where they have to stay. So we have a group of 13 athletes on the track, but we have, from that 13 athletes, we do 3 together as a small group, or 4 together, where the intensity is nearly the same.
Yeah, makes sense. Then if we get on to a slightly different topic, which is age groupers, and because a lot of the listeners of this podcast are age groupers, after all, so could you give some key points, key pieces of advice for age group triathletes to think about when it comes to how to get the most out of their training?
I think the most problem is the training load management for age group athletes. It is easier to train some professional athletes because they have nothing to do instead of training. They have to get their recovery and the training, and they have nearly 24 hours time on a day to do that. And if you work with age groupers, you have to take care of them, that you do the right amount of training, because they work 30 till 40 hours a week, and so they have some stress on the work or family stress or whatever, and you have to be really careful because that have an impact on the training, and that's really, or that's not easy to find the right balance, and it changes also from week to week. So you have to talk a lot to age groupers if you work with them, to find that balance on the training, and sometimes you have to change also your training plan, because it is, because of that topics, if they have stress on the work or family stress. So you have to adapt, and that is really difficult, because most of triathletes want to train, and they want to train a lot, but you have to get them back down to earth and say, okay, that's enough. You have stress there, and we do the training session a little bit easier, because that will be better for you.
Yeah. Do you think that for athletes that are self-coached, that don't have a coach, but they have planned their own program, is it just a case of they need to listen to their body, and if they notice that, okay, I'm not feeling that great today, or I didn't perform very well in my training yesterday, and you know that you also have a lot of stress going on at work, is that the best way of knowing that you should maybe adjust your training program a little bit until some of the stress goes away, maybe an easier period coming up in terms of work or family aspects of life? Or is there anything else that you would also recommend they do?
Yes, if you have that body feeling, it is perfect, I think it's perfect. But a lot of age group athletes don't have that body feeling, and they just want to train. And they do a lot of training. Also, if they have stress in different things, and then they get, they will be injured or will get ill or some, or because that is, how should I say that? In my opinion, some of them always overtrain themselves.
Yeah, and it may seem counterintuitive, but it's something that is very common to like get questions from age group athletes, or comments rather, saying, I would love to have a coach, but my life and my schedule is too different. Some weeks I have a lot going on, and some weeks not so much. So I'm not. I really can't have a coach. But actually, in many ways, because of what you just described, the more dynamic your life is, the more important it would be to have a coach to help guide you through that dynamic aspect. But of course, that requires a good relationship and good communication with your coach.
Yes.
But yeah, that basically what you say. Yes. Is something that aligns very well with what I've experienced as well, but something that is not always intuitive to understand.
Yes.
When it comes to the need for a coach.
Yes, it's a lot of work if you do that with age groupers, because you have to communicate a lot, because, as I said, every week there are other things that comes into the life, and you never know.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything else other than the load management that you would say for age groupers? What about the actual training? Like if you're somebody who's training 10 hours per week instead of 20 hours, should the training structure be different in some way? Or
yes, I think the less you train, the more intensity you can get in to the training. I think that's, I think you can do a little bit more intensity than if you train with a high volume. But you also have to be very careful with that, because some of the athletes always train a little bit too hard. But I think the intensity is much higher if you don't train that much volume.
I don't know if you agree, but I think one reason that a lot of times the intensity is a bit too hard is because of the testing methodologies used. For example, a 20-minute FTP test can quite often give FTPs that are slightly overestimated. And so that's just my opinion. But what do you think? Do the testing methodologies commonly used by age groupers play into that phenomenon of the intensity often being a bit too hard?
Yes, for sure. It's my opinion is the same. If you do that testing with 20 minutes FTP, I think it's had nothing to do with your physiology. And in my opinion, you always train a little bit too hard if you do that with only do that with an FTP test.
Yeah. Anything else when it comes to age group training that you can think of? Any other pieces of advice, suggestions?
Sometimes for age groupers, forget about all the gadgets like Garmin or Polar Watch. Just go out and do it and train like you want and by feeling.
Yeah. Is that to keep the enjoyment, like basically enjoy that feeling of just being out, or is that the purpose of it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just
perfect.
Enjoy the nature and your bike or the run, and forget about the advice from the coach, and do some training and enjoy the sessions.
Yeah. All right. So let's move into the rapid fire questions. So these are just one sentence to answer. And the first question is, what's your favorite book, blog, or resource related to triathlon?
Okay. In the last couple of months, I read 3 books. I find it very interesting. One, it was the Gym Paradox from Professor Steve Peters. It's about a book about mind management. And then I read a book, Molecular Exercise Physiology by Henning Wackerhage. And the third book was Führungsspiel by Bernhard Peters. I read that the third time, and it's very interesting.
What does the title mean in English of that book?
How can I describe that? It is a book about how do I I don't find the exact word.
Never mind. We'll have the link in the show notes, and listeners can have a look and find out for themselves. And then, what's your favorite piece of gear or equipment?
It's my bike, because when I ride my bike, it gives me a kind of freedom and inner peace, and I find quite a lot of good solutions for training problems.
And finally, what's a personal habit that's helped you achieve success?
It's calmness, because sometimes you can't push things too fast forward.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And do you have any social media or anything like that you want to, where the listeners can follow you?
No, I don't have that anymore, because I'm not a big fan of that. That is also a thing I have to say, with these informations on social media. Everybody is searching for these marginal gains, like the last 1 or 2% of their ability, and they forget the 99% to do right. That's a big problem in our days. Everybody posted their fancy sessions and what they do. And yeah, the younger athletes want to do that, and they forget that they have to develop the 99% first.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. Make the basics brilliant before you do anything else, and maybe not being on social media is another good habit that helps you.
Yeah, it's a big problem, because if you work with younger athletes, you try to say them you have to sleep not 8 till 9 hours, and then you see them, as I was also on Facebook or Instagram 2 years ago, and you see the athletes at 11 or 12 o'clock in the night on these social media things, and so that's really a problem.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on this podcast and sharing your experience and your knowledge. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Wolfram.
Thank you very much for having me.
I hope that you enjoyed that interview. As always, you can find the show notes on scientifictriathlon.com, and I will also link to all previous training talk related episodes on That Triathlon Show. So simply episodes that have been categorized as general training episodes, as this episode was. And remember that you can go to scientifictriathlon.com, click through to the podcast page and the episode's show notes page specifically, and there you can filter to find episodes of specific categories. So for example, general training related episode, or running related episodes, or nutrition related episodes, racing related episodes, and so on and so forth. So that is a useful feature. If you haven't checked it out already, then you can do that if you're looking for information on a particular topic. On Thursday, we have another Q&A episode coming out, and then next Monday, I interview Aitor Viribay Morales on the effects of really high carbohydrate intakes during racing. We're talking up to 120 grams per hour of carbohydrates here. This is a fascinating discussion, and Aitor has great knowledge and experience both from a scientific and a practical perspective here. He's done research on it, controlled studies, but he's also a performance nutritionist with the World Tour cycling team Astana. If you are looking for coaching services or training plans, then do check out scientifictriathlon.com. It's a new year, and hopefully you have some goals for this year, racing or epic events, whatever it may be. I hope that we can be with you on that journey and help you achieve your goals. We have a lot of information available on our products and services on scientifictriathlon.com, so just go there and check it out. And email me if you have any further questions, and that's michael@scientifictriathlon.com. Finally, big thanks to our sponsors, Roka, that you can find on roka.com. Check out their wetsuits, tri-suits, swimskins, goggles, high-performance eyewear, and prescription glasses and sunglasses, and get 20% off your order with a promo code that you can get on roka.com/TTS. And thank you to Zen8 Swim Trainer that you can find on zen8swimtrainer.com. Improve your technique, power, and stamina, activate your core, and use a high elbow catch with the patent-pending swim bench, and have an option for days when the pool is closed or when you simply don't have time to get to the pool. You can get 20% off your order with the promo code TTS20 on zen8swimtrainer.com. Thank you, as always, for listening. Keep training smart and keep loving triathlon.